I knew something was wrong the moment I saw Patricia from the HOA standing in my storage unit at 7 in the morning without my permission. My name is Connor Crawford, and I run a small contracting business in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I specialize in painting commercial properties, which means I deal with a lot of equipment, materials, and unfortunately, a lot of storage space. When I bought my townhouse in the Riverside Meadows community 3 years ago, I was told the HOA was reasonable and stayed out of people's business. That turned out to be the biggest lie anyone ever told me. The community had these storage units built into a separate building near the main parking lot. Each homeowner got one, and mine was packed with painting supplies, scaffolding parts, and my prized industrial fan heater that I had bought for $800 just last month. It was a beast of a machine, designed to keep large spaces warm during winter painting jobs when we needed the paint to cure properly in unheated warehouses. "Excuse me," I said, approaching Patricia, who was standing there with another woman I recognized as Linda, the HOA treasurer. "What are you doing in my unit?" Patricia turned to me with that smile that never reached her eyes. She was in her mid-50s, always dressed like she was about to attend a country club luncheon even at dawn, and had the kind of voice that could make a compliment sound like an insult. "Oh, Connor, good morning. We knocked on your door, but you weren't home." "I was out getting coffee," I said, holding up my cup from the nearby Starbucks. "That doesn't explain why you are in my locked storage unit." "Well, the HOA has master keys to all the units. It is in the bylaws, section 14, paragraph 3. We needed to do an inspection." I felt my jaw tighten. An inspection at 7 in the morning, without notice. Linda, who was shorter and rounder than Patricia and usually let Patricia do all the talking, actually spoke up. "We did send an email last week about potential inspections." "An email saying you might do inspections eventually is not the same as notice that you would be breaking into my unit today," I said. My coffee was getting cold and my patience was getting thinner. "Is there something specific you are looking for?" Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "We just wanted to make sure everyone was following the storage guidelines. No flammable materials, nothing that could be a fire hazard. You know how it is." I did know how it was. I kept my painting supplies properly stored in fireproof cabinets, had my permits in order, and everything was up to code. I had been a contractor for 12 years and knew the regulations better than Patricia knew how to mind her own business. "Everything looks fine here," Patricia continued. "Although I noticed you have that large heater." She pointed at my industrial fan heater, which was sitting on a rolling platform in the corner. "Yes, I use it for work. It is for keeping work sites warm during winter jobs." Patricia said in that way that indicated she was about to make my life difficult. "Well, we will let you know if we have any concerns. Have a good day, Connor." They left, and I stood there looking at my stuff, wondering what that was really about. I made sure to check that everything was still there and intact, locked up, and went home to start my workday. 3 days later, I got a call from my foreman, Marcus, who was supervising a job at a warehouse in Walker, just outside Grand Rapids. "Connor, we have a problem," Marcus said. "The temperature dropped last night, and some of the primer we put down yesterday is not setting right. We need that industrial heater you have." "I will bring it over this afternoon," I said. When I got to my storage unit that afternoon, the door was already unlocked. Again. And this time, my industrial heater was gone. I stood there staring at the empty space where my $800 piece of equipment had been sitting 3 days ago. I immediately called Patricia. "HOA office," she answered in that sing-song voice. "Patricia, this is Connor Crawford. My industrial heater is missing from my storage unit." "Oh, is it?" She did not sound surprised at all. Yes, it is. And my unit was unlocked. Do you know anything about this? There was a pause. Well, as a matter of fact, the HOA needed to borrow it temporarily. We are doing some painting in the community storage facility, and the weather has been so cold. We needed something to keep the space warm so the paint would dry properly. I felt heat rising up my neck that had nothing to do with any heater. You took my personal property without asking. We left a note, Patricia said defensively. Where? I did not see any note. We slipped it under your door. I had not seen any note, but that was beside the point. Patricia, you cannot just take someone's personal property. That heater is not community property. It is mine. I bought it with my own money for my business. The bylaws state that in times of community need, the HOA can utilize available resources for the benefit of all residents. That is insane. That is not what that means. That means you can use community-owned resources, not steal from individual owners. We are not stealing, Connor. We are borrowing. You will get it back when we are done with the painting project. When will that be? Oh, probably a week or two, maybe 3. It depends on how the weather holds up. Patricia, I need that heater today. I have a job that requires it. Well, I am sorry, Connor, but the community's needs come first. It is in the bylaws, Section 7, I believe. You agreed to them when you bought your property. Get me my heater back by end of business today, or I am calling the police. Patricia laughed. Actually laughed. The police? Connor, do not be dramatic. This is an HOA matter. The police do not get involved in HOA matters. We have every right to use community resources. It is not a community resource. It is theft. I am sorry you feel that way. Have a nice day. She hung up. I stood there holding my phone, absolutely furious. I called the non-emergency police line and explained the situation to the dispatcher. She said she would send an officer to take a report. Officer Henderson showed up at my townhouse about an hour later. He was a middle-aged guy with gray at his temples and the tired expression of someone who had seen way too much stupidity in his career. I explained the whole situation to him while we stood in my driveway. He took notes and nodded along. So your HOA took your heater without permission, he summarized. Yes. They claim they have the right to because of the bylaws, but that cannot be legal. Officer Henderson sighed. Here is the thing, Mr. Crawford. Technically, if they took your property without permission, yes, that is theft. However, because you live in an HOA community and they are claiming it falls under the bylaws, it gets complicated. This might be something you need to handle through civil court or arbitration, rather than criminal charges. So they can just steal my stuff and face no consequences. I did not say that. What I am saying is that the prosecutor might not want to pursue criminal charges for this. It is a gray area, but I will file a report and you will have documentation that you reported it stolen. That might be useful if you decide to take them to small claims court or if this escalates. He filed the report and gave me a case number. It was not what I wanted, but it was something. I called Marcus and told him I would rent a heater for the job and bill the HOA for it later. He was not happy, but he understood. I went to an equipment rental place and dropped $300 for a week-long rental of an industrial heater that was not as good as the one I owned. Over the next few days, I drove past the community storage facility several times. It was a long, garage-style building with multiple bay doors. I could see lights on inside and occasionally saw Patricia or Linda going in and out. And yes, I could see my heater through the window, running in there while they painted. I drafted a formal letter demanding the return of my property and sent it certified mail to the HOA. I also started going through the bylaws with a fine-tooth comb. The section Patricia had referenced about utilizing community resources was actually about things like using the community fund for emergency repairs, not confiscating personal property. The section about master keys to storage units was meant for actual emergencies like fires or floods, not for letting themselves in whenever they felt like it. A week went by. Then 2 weeks. I sent another letter. I called Patricia 5 times and she stopped answering when she saw my number. I left messages. Nothing. My rental heater had done the job at the warehouse, but now I had another project coming up in February. It was a big commercial kitchen renovation in downtown Grand Rapids that would require proper heating to cure the specialized paint we were using. I needed my equipment back. On a Tuesday morning in late January, I decided I had had enough. I parked near the storage facility and watched. Around 10 in the morning, I saw Patricia and Linda go in through one of the bay doors. They left the door partially open. I could see my heater running inside, keeping the space warm while they worked on painting the walls some boring beige color. At noon, they both left for lunch. I knew from experience that Patricia took long lunch breaks, usually at least an hour and a half. She liked to drive to this fancy deli on the other side of Grand Rapids. I waited 10 minutes to make sure they were really gone, then I walked into the storage facility. My heater was sitting right there, humming away, pumping warm air into the space. Paint cans were stacked everywhere. I looked around and noticed they had a lot of paint stored in there. A lot. Way more than you would need for just touching up the storage facility walls. I unplugged my heater, wrapped the cord around it, and rolled it on its platform right out of there. I loaded it into my truck and drove straight home. I put it in my garage this time, not in the storage unit. I figured if they had master keys to the storage units, they did not have keys to my garage. About 2 hours later, my phone started ringing. Patricia. I did not answer. She called 3 more times. Then Linda called. Then I got a text from Patricia that said, "We need to talk about the heater situation immediately." I texted back, "Sure. You can talk to my lawyer. You stole my property and I took it back. I have a police report documenting that I reported it stolen. Do not contact me again except through legal channels." My phone rang again immediately. I declined the call. Then I got a long text from Patricia about how I was being unreasonable, how the community was just trying to improve everyone's property values by maintaining the facilities, how I was being selfish, and how there would be consequences for my actions. I screenshotted all of it and did not respond. The next morning, I woke up to find a notice taped to my front door. It was from the HOA, informing me that I had violated the community bylaws by interfering with an approved HOA project, and that I was being fined $500. I was also being cited for aggressive behavior toward board members, and that this fine would increase by $100 every day until I returned the community equipment. My $800 heater that I had bought with my own money was now apparently community equipment. I took pictures of the notice and called the lawyer I had used when I bought the townhouse. His name was Richard Paulson, and he specialized in property law. "Connor, good to hear from you," Richard said when he answered. "What can I do for you?" I explained the entire situation, from the unauthorized entry into my storage unit to the theft of my heater to the current fine situation. Richard was quiet for a moment after I finished. "Do you have proof of purchase for the heater?" "Yes, I have the receipt and it is on my business credit card statement." "Good, and you filed a police report?" "Yes, I have the case number. Send me everything." All the letters, the bylaws, the police report, proof of purchase, those threatening texts from Patricia, and that notice about the fine. Send it all to my email today. What do you think? I think your HOA has severely overstepped, and I think we can handle this pretty easily. Do not pay that fine. Do not respond to any more communications from them except to say that they should contact your legal counsel. Give them my information." I sent Richard everything that afternoon. He emailed me back an hour later saying he had sent a cease and desist letter to the HOA, informing them that they had committed theft, that any fines levied against me would be challenged, and that if they did not drop this matter immediately, we would be pursuing legal action. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, I got a call from Marcus at the warehouse job in Walker. "Connor, something weird happened. The city inspector showed up today and said he got a complaint about our site. Someone reported that we are not properly storing our materials and that we are violating cold weather painting regulations." My stomach dropped. "We are not violating anything. We have everything by the book." "I know that. The inspector checked everything and said we are fine. But he said the complaint was pretty detailed. Someone who knows about painting made it." "Did he say who filed the complaint?" "He could not tell me, but he said it was a woman from Grand Rapids. Patricia. It had to be." Over the next week, I got 3 more calls about complaints filed on my various job sites. Every single time, the inspector showed up, found nothing wrong, and mentioned that the complaint had come from a woman in Grand Rapids. It was harassment, pure and simple, but it was also time-consuming and disruptive to my business. Every time an inspector showed up, we had to stop work, answer questions, and prove we were following regulations. I documented every single instance and sent it to Richard. "This is getting into tortious interference territory," Richard said when I called him. "She is actively trying to damage your business because of a personal dispute. We can add this to our case." "What case? I thought the cease and desist would stop this." "It should have. But apparently your HOA president does not understand the seriousness of the situation. I think we need to file suit. Small claims for the value of your time dealing with this, the rental heater costs, and damages from the harassment. I also think we need to push the police to consider criminal charges for the theft." I thought they said it was a civil matter. It was, until she started retaliating against you for taking your own property back. That changes things. Let me make some calls. While Richard worked on the legal front, I focused on my business and tried to ignore the constant stream of petty harassment from the HOA. I got notices about my trash cans being visible from the street for more than the allowed time. I got cited for parking my work truck in my driveway overnight, even though the bylaws specifically allowed commercial vehicles under a certain size, and my truck qualified. Every citation came with a fine, and every fine was dutifully documented and sent to Richard. Then, in mid-February, something unexpected happened. I ran into my neighbor, George Peterson, who lived 3 doors down. George was a retired accountant in his 60s who mostly kept to himself. We were talking about the crazy winter weather when he mentioned something interesting. "I heard Patricia and the board are in some hot water," George said. "Oh yeah, about what?" "Well, you know how they have been doing all this painting in the storage facility," George asked. "Yeah, I know. Boy, did I know. Turns out they bought all that paint and supplies with HOA funds. A lot of paint, like way more than they needed for the storage facility, and then they have been using community resources to paint their own homes." I stared at him. "What? Linda's whole house got painted last month. Did you notice? And Patricia's garage and fence got done too. All using paint that was bought with community funds." Someone on the board started asking questions about the expenses, and it came out in the last meeting. "Was this at an open meeting?" "Yeah, last Thursday. You should have been there. It got heated." Patricia tried to say it was all for community beautification, and that board members' homes being painted benefited everyone's property values, but people were not buying it. Janet Morrison, you know her, the lady with the 2 golden retrievers. She straight up called it embezzlement. This was bigger than I thought. Way bigger. You know how much money we are talking about? I asked. From what I heard, about $15,000 worth of paint and supplies over the past 4 months. And that does not include the cost of the actual labor, which Patricia claims she did herself, but come on. Nobody believes that. I called Richard immediately and told him what I had learned. That is very interesting, Richard said. If she is using HOA funds for personal benefit, that is misappropriation of funds at minimum. Depending on the amount and the structure of your HOA, it could be a felony. Do you know when the next HOA meeting is? I can find out. Do that. We should attend. And I think it is time to loop in the police again, but this time about the financial crimes, not just the theft of your heater. I got the meeting information from the HOA website. The next meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday evening at 7. It was an open meeting, and I made sure to clear my schedule. That Tuesday, I arrived at the community center with Richard at 6:45. The meeting room was already packed. Apparently word had gotten around about the financial issues, and people were angry. I saw George there, along with Janet Morrison and her husband, and about 30 other residents I recognized but did not know well. Patricia sat at the front table with Linda and 3 other board members. When Patricia saw me walk in with Richard, her face went pale, then red. The meeting started with the usual routine business, but everyone was clearly impatient to get to the real issue. About 20 minutes in, Janet Morrison raised her hand during the open forum portion. I want to know about the $15,000 that was spent on paint and painting supplies, Janet said loudly. And I want to know why board members' homes are getting painted with HOA funds. The room erupted in murmurs and people agreeing. Patricia banged her gavel. Order, please. This has already been addressed at the previous meeting. It was not addressed, Janet shot back. You gave some nonsense answer about community beautification. We want real answers. We want receipts. We want a full accounting. The treasurer can provide the information, Patricia said stiffly. Linda looked like she wanted to be anywhere but there. She shuffled some papers. The board approved a budget for facility maintenance and painting. The purchases were within that approved budget. But that budget was for community facilities, not for your personal homes, someone else called out. Richard stood up. If I may introduce myself, I am Richard Paulson, attorney representing Connor Crawford. I have been retained due to the theft of Mr. Crawford's personal property by the HOA board and the subsequent harassment he has faced. However, I am now also very interested in these allegations of financial misappropriation. The room got very quiet. Patricia found her voice. This is an HOA meeting, not a legal proceeding. You have no standing here. Actually, as an attorney representing a member of this HOA, I have every right to attend an open meeting and to request financial records, which are required to be available to all HOA members. Mr. Crawford has the right to see exactly how his HOA fees are being spent. This is harassment, Patricia said, but her voice wavered. No, madam, what you did to Mr. Crawford is harassment. What we are doing now is due diligence. Richard pulled out a folder. I have documented evidence that you took Mr. Crawford's personal property, valued at $800, without permission. When he took it back, you attempted to fine him and made multiple false reports to city inspectors about his business in an attempt to damage his livelihood. And now we are learning that you may have also been misappropriating HOA funds for personal use. Someone in the back started clapping. Then others joined in. Patricia stood up. This meeting is over. You cannot just end a meeting because you do not like what is being said, Richard replied calmly. Watch me. Patricia grabbed her bag and walked out. Linda and one of the other board members followed her, leaving two board members sitting at the table looking confused and embarrassed. Richard turned to address the room. I would strongly suggest that the remaining board members call for an emergency vote to remove Patricia from her position and to bring in an independent auditor to review the HOA finances. If you would like, I can provide you with the name of a forensic accountant who specializes in HOA financial reviews. One of the remaining board members, a man named Ted Williams, nodded. I think that is a good idea. I have been concerned about some of the financial decisions made over the past few months, but Patricia always shut down any questions. The meeting continued without Patricia. Within an hour, the remaining board members and the residents in attendance had voted to suspend Patricia and Linda from their positions pending a full financial review, and they had appointed an interim board to handle day-to-day operations. Richard gave them the information for the forensic accountant he recommended, a woman named Sarah Chen who had an excellent reputation. As we left the community center, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. What happens now? I asked Richard. Now we let the investigation play out. Sarah will go through all the financial records. If she finds evidence of embezzlement or fraud, which I suspect she will, then it is a criminal matter. The police will get involved and Patricia and possibly Linda will face charges. And what about my situation? The stolen heater and all the harassment. I think once the criminal investigation starts, your personal matter will be resolved pretty quickly. Patricia will not want to add more charges to what she is already facing. But if she does not back down, we can still pursue it in civil court. You have excellent documentation. Over the next 3 weeks, things moved faster than I expected. Sarah Chen conducted her audit and discovered that Patricia had been systematically using HOA funds for personal purposes for over a year. The paint situation was just the tip of the iceberg. She had also used HOA funds to pay for landscaping at her house, had purchased furniture that was supposedly for the community center but had ended up in her home, and had even used the HOA credit card for personal expenses, including restaurants and shopping. In total, she had misappropriated over $38,000. Sarah turned her findings over to the HOA board, who immediately contacted the Kent County Prosecutor's Office. The prosecutor assigned a detective to the case, and within a week, they had enough evidence for charges. On March 3rd, I was at a job site in Kentwood when I got a call from Richard. They arrested Patricia this morning, he said. She is being charged with embezzlement, theft, and fraud. Wow, I said. I had expected it, but it still felt surreal. Linda is cooperating with the investigation. Apparently, she was aware of some of what Patricia was doing but was afraid to speak up. They might give her immunity in exchange for her testimony. So what about my situation? Already resolved. The new HOA board sent a formal letter this morning apologizing for everything that happened, retracting all the fines they levied against you, and offering to compensate you for the rental heater costs and your time. They are also reimbursing you $200 for what they calculated was the wear and tear on your heater while they used it. That is it. She put me through hell for weeks. Well, she is facing felony charges and probably jail time. And you can still pursue a civil case against her personally for damages if you want. But the HOA itself is trying to make amends. I thought about it. The new board had not done anything wrong. They had actually been pretty quick to fix things once they knew what was happening. I will take the settlement from the HOA, I said. But I wanted in writing that they acknowledge they had no right to take my property and that they will never enter my storage unit or garage without proper notice and consent again. I can make that happen. 2 days later, I received a check from the HOA for $600, which covered the rental heater costs, the compensation for using my heater, and what Richard negotiated as a payment for my time and trouble. I also got a formal letter of apology signed by the new board president, Ted Williams, acknowledging that the previous board had overstepped and violated my rights. The letter specifically stated that HOA master keys would only be used for genuine emergencies in the future, and that any entry into a resident storage unit would require 24 hours notice except in cases of fire, flood, or other immediate danger to life or property. It was everything I wanted, really, but I was still curious about what would happen to Patricia. Richard kept me updated as the case progressed through the legal system. Patricia hired a lawyer, of course, and tried to argue that she had authorization from the board to make purchases for community beautification. But the evidence was overwhelming. Sarah Chen's audit had been thorough, and there were receipts, credit card statements, and even photos that showed HOA purchased items in Patricia's home. Linda's testimony was particularly damaging. She told investigators that Patricia had pressured her to approve purchases by claiming they were for community projects. But Linda had discovered months ago that Patricia was using the supplies for personal purposes. Patricia had threatened to remove Linda from the board if she said anything, so Linda had stayed quiet. In June, Patricia pleaded guilty to 1 count of felony embezzlement and 2 counts of misdemeanor theft. The plea deal included restitution to the HOA for the full amount she had taken, plus interest and penalties, which came out to just over $45,000. She was sentenced to 18 months in jail, with the possibility of serving half that time in a work release program if she made consistent restitution payments. She was also barred from serving on any HOA board in the state of Michigan for life. I attended the sentencing hearing. I wanted to see it for myself. Patricia looked smaller than I remembered. She was wearing a conservative blue dress and her hair was pulled back. She cried when the judge read the sentence and talked about how she had made terrible mistakes and how sorry she was. The judge was not sympathetic. "Mrs. Patricia Hawkins, you held a position of trust within your community," the judge said. "Your neighbors elected you to manage their collective funds and to make decisions in their best interest. Instead, you used that position to enrich yourself. You stole from the very people who trusted you. And when one of those residents stood up for his rights, you attempted to destroy his business through harassment and false complaints. Your actions show a pattern of selfishness and disregard for others that I find deeply troubling." The courtroom was silent except for Patricia's quiet sobbing. "I am also troubled by the fact that you took so long to take responsibility. You fought these charges for months, wasting the court's time and resources, before finally accepting this plea deal. That shows me that you are sorry you got caught, not sorry for what you did." Patricia was taken into custody immediately after sentencing. I watched as they led her out of the courtroom in handcuffs. A part of me felt a little bit bad for her, a very small part. But mostly, I just felt relieved that it was over. Outside the courthouse, I ran into Janet Morrison, who had also attended the hearing. "Can you believe all of this?" Janet asked. "I mean, we knew Patricia was controlling, but embezzlement, using community funds to paint her house. It is pretty crazy," I agreed. "You know what the ironic thing is," Janet continued. "If she had just asked to borrow your heater, you probably would have said yes." She was right. If Patricia had knocked on my door and said, "Hey Connor, the HOA needs to do some painting in the storage facility and it is really cold. Could we borrow your industrial heater for a few days?" I would have said yes. I might have even helped them set it up. But instead, she had taken it without asking, claimed it was community property, and then tried to destroy my business when I took it back. And in the process, her entire scheme had unraveled. "Pride comes before a fall," I said. "Sure does," Janet agreed. "The HOA underwent a lot of changes after everything that happened." The new board implemented strict financial controls, requiring 2 signatures on all purchases, over $500, and monthly financial reports available to all residents. They also revised the bylaws to clarify what constituted an emergency that would allow entry into private storage units, and they established a grievance procedure, so residents could challenge fines or board decisions without fear of retaliation. Ted Williams, the new board president, actually did a good job. He was transparent, communicated well, and seemed genuinely interested in serving the community rather than wielding power. I kept my heater in my garage after everything that happened. I did not trust the storage unit anymore, even with the new bylaws. Besides, I used the heater frequently enough that it made sense to keep it somewhere more accessible. Business was good. The harassment from the false inspector complaints had stopped the moment Patricia was removed from the board, and my reputation had not been damaged. In fact, I picked up 2 new clients who had heard about what happened and respected how I had stood up for myself against the HOA. One afternoon in August, I was working on a residential painting job in East Grand Rapids when I got a call from an unknown number. Usually I do not answer those, but something made me pick up. "Is this Connor Crawford?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Cheryl Hawkins. I am Patricia's sister." I almost hung up right there, but curiosity got the better of me. "What can I do for you, Cheryl?" "I want to apologize for what my sister did to you. I know she put you through hell and none of it was right. She is my sister and I love her, but what she did was wrong." "I appreciate that," I said, not sure where this was going. "She asked me to call you. She is in the work release program now and she has been doing a lot of therapy and self-reflection. She wanted me to tell you that she is truly sorry for everything. She knows she cannot undo what she did, but she wants you to know that she understands how badly she hurt you and that she takes full responsibility." I was quiet for a moment. Is she hoping I will write a letter to the parole board or something? No, nothing like that. She just wanted you to know she is sorry. She knows you have no reason to forgive her and she is not asking for forgiveness. She just wanted you to hear it. "Okay," I said. "Well, thank you for calling. I hope she gets the help she needs." "Thank you for being gracious," Cheryl said. "I know you did not have to take my call." After I hung up, I thought about Patricia sitting in jail, going to therapy, and maybe finally understanding what she had done wrong. I hoped the therapy was working. I hoped she came out of this a better person. But honestly, it was not my problem anymore. I had my heater back. My business was thriving. The HOA was functioning properly for the first time since I had moved in. Life was good. That evening, I was having a beer in my garage, organizing some tools when George Peterson walked by with his dog. "Hey Connor," George called out. "How is it going?" "Pretty good, George. How about you?" "Cannot complain." "Hey, I wanted to tell you, a bunch of us neighbors really appreciated what you did. Standing up to Patricia and the board. I know it was not easy, but it made things better for all of us." "Thanks, George." "I was just trying to get my heater back." George laughed. "Well, you got your heater back and you saved us all from a corrupt HOA board. Not bad for a few months' work." We chatted for a few more minutes before George continued on his walk. I looked around my garage at my tools, my heater, all my equipment, everything I had worked hard for, everything I had built. The whole situation with Patricia and the HOA had been exhausting and infuriating, but it had taught me something important. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even when it is hard, even when people in authority tell you that you are wrong. Sometimes you have to fight, and sometimes the right thing to do is just take back what is yours and let the consequences play out naturally. Because here is the thing about Patricia taking my heater. If she had never taken it, I never would have gone to retrieve it. I never would have seen all that paint in the storage facility. I never would have started asking questions that led to George telling me about the financial irregularities. The investigation might never have happened, or it might have happened much later after Patricia had stolen even more money. In a weird way, Patricia taking my heater and my determination to get it back had exposed her whole scheme. It was like pulling one thread that unraveled the entire sweater. I finished my beer and went inside. It was a nice summer evening in Grand Rapids, and through my window I could see kids playing in the street, neighbors talking in their yards, and everything looking peaceful and normal. The way it should be. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Got the details on that school cafeteria project in Wyoming. Looks like we will need the big heater for that one. When can you bring it by? I texted back. Tomorrow morning. And Marcus, this time it is staying with us on site until the job is done. No more storage unit. You got it, boss. I sat down on my couch and turned on the TV. There was a Tigers game on. I was not much of a baseball fan, but it was nice background noise. I thought about how much had changed in the past 6 months. When this all started, I had been frustrated and angry, feeling powerless against an HOA board that thought they could do whatever they wanted. Now Patricia was in jail. The HOA had been reformed, and I had learned that the system, for all its flaws, did eventually work if you were patient and persistent enough. Richard had been worth every penny I had paid him. He had guided me through the process, kept me from making emotional decisions that could have hurt my case, and had known exactly when to push and when to wait. The next morning, I loaded my heater into my truck and drove it to the school cafeteria site in Wyoming, a suburb just south of Grand Rapids. Marcus and the crew were already there, setting up for the job. "There is the magic heater," Marcus joked when he saw me pull up. "Yeah, well, this magic heater caused more trouble than it is worth," I said, but I was smiling. We got the heater set up in the cafeteria where we would be doing the painting. The school was closed for summer break, which made our job easier. We had 3 weeks to paint the entire cafeteria, kitchen, and 2 hallways. It was a good contract, and the school district was already talking about having us bid on more work at other schools. As I stood there in that empty cafeteria, watching Marcus and the crew prep the walls, I felt genuinely happy. This was my business, built from nothing over 12 years of hard work. I had good employees, good clients, and a good reputation. Patricia had tried to damage all of that, but she had failed. The heater hummed quietly in the corner, pumping warm air into the space even though it was summer. We needed it to help the primer dry faster on the concrete walls. It was doing exactly what I had bought it to do. Over the next few weeks, we completed the school job without any issues. No HOA members stole my equipment. No mysterious inspector complaints showed up. It was just normal, honest work. It felt good. In September, I attended an HOA meeting for the first time since the whole situation had resolved. I wanted to stay informed about what was happening in the community, and I wanted to support the new board that was actually trying to do things right. Ted Williams was presenting the budget for the upcoming year. Everything was transparent. with line items clearly explained and time for questions. It was like night and day compared to how Patricia had run things. During the open forum, I raised my hand. "Yes, Connor," Ted said. He smiled at me. We had become friendly over the past few months. "I just wanted to say that I appreciate the job the new board is doing. The transparency and communication have been excellent. I know you all are volunteers, and this takes time away from your families and your own lives, so thank you." Several other residents voiced their agreement, and Ted looked genuinely touched. "Thanks, Connor. We are just trying to do right by the community. We all learned a hard lesson about accountability and trust, and we are committed to making sure nothing like that happens again." After the meeting, Janet Morrison came up to me. "You know, Connor, we could use someone like you on the board." "Have you ever thought about running?" I laughed. "No way. I have seen how much work it is. Besides, I have got my hands full with my business." "Well, if you ever change your mind, let me know. We need more people who are not afraid to stand up and do the right thing." I thanked her, but I meant what I said. Being on the HOA board was not for me. I had learned that the best way to deal with an HOA was to be informed, to know your rights, and to speak up when something was wrong. But I did not need to be in charge to do that. As fall turned to winter, I found myself thinking less and less about the whole Patricia situation. It had become just a story I told sometimes, a crazy thing that had happened but was now in the past. My business continued to grow. I hired another painter to keep up with demand. Marcus was talking about maybe starting his own crew and us partnering on bigger projects. Everything was moving in the right direction. One cold December afternoon, I was in my garage changing the oil in my truck when I saw a car pull up that I did not recognize. A woman got out, and it took me a minute to realize it was Patricia. She had lost weight and her hair was shorter. She looked older somehow, though it had only been 9 months since I had last seen her in court. "Connor," she said, stopping at the edge of my driveway. "I know I am probably the last person you want to see. I will leave if you want me to." I stood up, wiping my hands on a rag. "What are you doing here, Patricia? I wanted to apologize to you in person. My sister called you a while back, but I felt like I needed to face you myself. You are out of jail. I am in the work release program. I work at a call center during the day and I am in a halfway house at night. Part of my therapy is making amends to the people I hurt." I did not say anything. Patricia continued, her voice shaking a little. "What I did to you was wrong. All of it. Taking your heater, trying to fine you, calling in those fake complaints. I was so convinced that I knew what was best for the community that I lost sight of basic decency and respect. I hurt you and I tried to hurt your business because my ego could not handle you standing up to me." She paused, looking down at the ground. "I know that you standing up for yourself is what led to the investigation that exposed everything I had done. And honestly, I am grateful for that. I was out of control and I needed to be stopped. I just wish I had been a better person who did not need to be stopped in the first place." "Why did you do it?" I asked. "The embezzlement, I mean. Was it just greed?" Patricia shook her head. "It was not about the money, not really. It was about feeling important and powerful. I had spent my whole adult life feeling like I did not matter, and then I became HOA president and suddenly, people paid attention to me. People listened when I talked, and I let that go to my head. I started believing that what was good for me was good for everyone. And when I wanted something, I convinced myself that the community wanted it too." She finally looked up at me. "I took your heater because I wanted the storage facility painted, and I did not want to wait or go through proper channels. I convinced myself that community needs came before individual rights, but that is not true. I just did not want to be told no." I considered her words. She seemed genuine, but I had learned not to trust appearances when it came to Patricia. "I accept your apology," I said finally. "Not because I think what you did is okay or because I forgive you, but because I can see you are trying to take responsibility. That matters." Patricia nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you. That is more grace than I deserve. I will leave you alone now. I just needed you to know that I am sorry and that you were right to stand up for yourself." She walked back to her car and drove away. I stood in my driveway for a few minutes, processing what had just happened. That night, I called Richard and told him about Patricia's visit. "How did it make you feel?" he asked. "Honestly, kind of sad. She threw away her life and her reputation for what? Paint, furniture. A sense of importance. People do irrational things when they feel powerless in other areas of their lives," Richard said. "Not that it excuses what she did, but it explains it." "Yeah," I agreed. "Are you concerned that she might cause more trouble?" "No," I said, and I meant it. "I think she is genuinely trying to change, but even if she is not, I know my rights now. I know how to protect myself. She does not have any power over me anymore." And that was the truth. Patricia could not hurt me anymore because I understood the system now. I knew what was legal and what was not. I knew when to fight and how to fight. Most importantly, I knew my own worth, and I was not going to let anyone, HOA president or not, treat me like I did not matter. Christmas that year was quiet and good. I spent it with my girlfriend, Amy, who I had started dating in October. She knew the whole story about Patricia and the heater, and thought it was insane. She was an elementary school teacher and had her own horror stories about difficult administrators, so she understood the frustration of dealing with people who abused small amounts of power. We had dinner with her family in Lansing, and it was nice to be somewhere where nobody knew about HOA drama or stolen heaters or embezzlement. It was just normal people having a normal holiday. On New Year's Eve, Amy and I went to a party at Marcus's house. A bunch of people from my crew were there along with Marcus's family and friends. At midnight, after we had toasted and celebrated, Marcus pulled me aside. "I have been thinking about that partnership we talked about," Marcus said. "I am ready if you are. I have got 3 solid jobs lined up for spring, and I think we could really make this work." We shook hands, and I felt excited about the future in a way I had not in a long time. The whole situation with Patricia had been a nightmare, but it had also taught me to be more assertive, more confident, and more willing to fight for what was right. Those were lessons that would serve me well in business and in life. January and February passed quietly. My industrial heater worked perfectly on every job we used it for, never once getting stolen or borrowed or causing any drama. It was just a tool doing its job, which was all it should have ever been. The new HOA board continued to do good work. Property values in Riverside Meadows actually went up that year, partly because of the improved management and partly because the story of Patricia's downfall had made the news and shown that the community took accountability seriously. In March, I got a letter from the Kent County court system. Patricia had completed her sentence, including the work release program, and her restitution payments were on schedule. The letter was mostly informational, just letting me know as one of the victims of her crimes. I filed it away and did not think much about it. Patricia was not my problem anymore. She was dealing with the consequences of her choices, and I was focused on my own life and future. By the time spring arrived, I had almost forgotten that the whole situation had ever happened. It felt like something from another lifetime, a story about someone else. But then one warm April morning, I was getting coffee at the same Starbucks where this all started, and I saw Patricia working behind the counter. Our eyes met. She looked nervous but determined. She was wearing the standard green apron, and her name tag said, Pat. When it was my turn to order, she took a deep breath and asked, "What can I get for you?" "Medium coffee, black," I said. She rang it up and made the coffee without any awkwardness or drama. When she handed it to me, she said quietly, "On the house. It is the least I can do." "You do not have to do that, Patricia." "Pat," she corrected. "I go by Pat now, fresh start, and yes, I do have to, please." I took the coffee. "Thanks, Pat, thank you," she said, "for giving me a chance to do something decent." I left the Starbucks and got in my truck. As I drove to my first job site of the day, I thought about how strange life was. A year ago, Patricia had been a powerful HOA president who thought she could take whatever she wanted and face no consequences. Now she was serving coffee at Starbucks and trying to rebuild her life. I did not take any satisfaction from her downfall. I did not feel vindicated or superior. I just felt like justice had been served and everyone was moving on with their lives. And that was exactly how it should be. My heater was in the back of my truck, ready for another day of work. The sun was shining. Business was good. Life was good. Sometimes the universe has a way of balancing things out. You stand up for yourself, you fight for what is right, and eventually things work out the way they are supposed to. It might take time, it might be hard, but if you are patient and persistent, justice prevails. That is what I learned from the whole situation. That and the fact that you should never, ever let your HOA use your industrial heater without permission, because you never know what else you might discover when you go to take it back.